the cars are old, only by, in some cases, 3 or 4 seasons. We've just enjoyed a lovely trip down the historic memory lane of touring cars, and now we can look at the GT era, all part of how the 24 Hours of Spa has morphed. For many years, it was a touring car race until it became a GT event back in the early noughties, and this is an opportunity to have a look at the GT history. Now, it's a race in itself, of course. We had a really good race yesterday, and that was the winning car, the car that led onto the last lap, the Viper, try again, Paynos, not doing very well here, of Olivier Galland, but it had a problem on the very last lap and so lost out to the Chevrolet Corvette of Adrian Wilmot that just jumped ahead. Adrian Wilmot only led once across the line, but importantly, it was the last lap, and it was the one to lead. There is the Sam Hancock, Alexander Rittweger Maserati that Sam Hancock is behind the wheel of. Ignore the graphic. The drivers don't have to declare, or there is not a system to declare who starts and who's the second driver. So it's purely as the entry list is published. But it is Sam Hancock, as you can see, who will go first in that car. And then for third on the grid, you should find the Corvette that Andrew Jordan will start, having just jumped from a BMW M3 touring car into that. There it is, the Corvette that Diego Alessi and Daniel Karlowitz won the ADAC GT Championship with a good few years ago now, but it's a quick car, that, and certainly Andrew Jordan proved yesterday just how rapid he is. Evgeny Kirev didn't last very long in yesterday's race, had a drama early on, but I suspect if he can stay out of trouble in this race, is going to be very well worth watching. David Addison and John Watson are trackside. We enjoyed looking at these cars yesterday, and not only that, John, but we also witnessed some very hard racing, because within a number of these cars you've got some very good drivers. Well,
one of the things I found rather disturbing is that I was actually broadcasting when these cars were racing in period.
Yes.
So does that make me sort of an historic broadcaster, or would that be a bit too blunt?
Well, it makes you a legend. I mean, these are endurance racing legends. You are a legend in your own right, I think.
I mean, some of the cars are just fantastic, and I think the MC12 Maserati is the one for me that's the standard GT car of that era. Apart from anything else, apart from the livery, it just looks glorious. More importantly, that howling V12 engine sounds glorious. Dare I say it, sounds like a racing car should sound.
There's a great mix on this grid. Plenty of Porsches, 1 minute board shown, and I think we'll point out in the race, no doubt, John, but you look at the Porsches and you see how they have evolved, how the size of the cars has evolved as well, because some of the early 90s Porsches look terribly narrow in comparison with the modern cars.
When seeing some of the shots, it reminded me of my dinky toy modelled Porsches, or Corgi in the case of those that didn't buy dinkies. And then you look at the current cars, the GT3 car of 2024, it's a monster compared to it.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's the more appealing car, because the purity of the cars we've got on the grid, especially the 993 variation, which is the last of the Porsche air-cooled motors. Everything from 996 model forward became a water-cooled engine. So the 993 is maybe the soft spot for me within the Porsches here today, because it represents ultimately the final just got the anthem going, that was why.
That's for the podium for the previous race in the background. 15-second board shown, so the organisers rattling on, and very shortly these cars are going to be released onto the formation lap.
Yeah, just going back to the 993, it's the final iteration of what the magnificent Ferdinand Porsche, and originally started with a Porsche 356. You know, in the early years, 48, 49, and then they went into manufacture very small numbers in the early 50s, and there we are today, one of the most iconic brands in the world, and not only iconic, one of the most successful brands in the motor industry in the world.
So then the cars released onto their formation lap. And it is going to be then Olivier Galland on pole position, with Sam Hancock lining up with him at the front of the grid. Andrew Jordan starts third, and Evgeny Kriv will go from fourth on the grid. Fifth is where you find Adrian Wilmot. Sixth, Jonathan Mitchell, whose Ferrari got into the top three yesterday. Then seventh on the grid is number 50, Stefan Reutmeier, ahead of Vasily Vladikin in Johnny Westbrook's Audi. Then it is Nico Verdonk with John Emberson lining up alongside him. Gregory Drio's Bentley has Josh Kreuger's Viper for company. Philippe Collinson's Ferrari comes next, and then Yannick Trautwein in the GT2 BMW. Richard Mines goes solo, and so too does Sebastian Glazer, who just won the touring car race. Philippe Skimama comes next. Mike Jordan missing from the grid, the Porsche with a problem, so not taking part today, but we do have Marcus van Ooyenhausen and Jack Tetley lining up next. Then it is Christophe Van Riet and Pierre Eret. Names we're familiar with from modern racing. Nick Padmore starts Jean-Louis Rion's Porsche, possibly because I don't think he got much of a run yesterday. And then you've got Philippe Garousse next, ahead of Lee Maxted Page and Mark Sumter, Porsche experts both. Jason Wright's Ferrari next, and then it is the Nicolas Traber driven 996. Then number 94, which is the car of Janos Santa, the Marcos LM 500 behind Santa. It is going to be Matthias Davis, then Xavier Gallant, Frederic Laurent and Alexander Lienau, ahead of Andre Bezuidenhout next. And also there is Albert Weinziel with number 12 Porsche, Enrique Gempel, ahead of Olivier Piquet and Paul Phillips, with Heiko Osman and Stephen Keating to round out the grid. So that is what we've got, and all shapes, all sizes, all engine configurations, and some wonderful noises as well to revel in here.
Yeah, we're going to have to keep an eye on the start, because on the opening lap of the race yesterday, the number 14 Maserati of Evgeny Kiev, we think came into contact with the Corvette on either the run out of La Source or somewhere in the area of Eau Rouge, which led to the immediate retirement of the Vodafone-sponsored Maserati. There it is, coming through the image, and there's the Corvette behind. The Corvette had a bit of a nibble out of the near side front bodywork, which then was patched up when the car made its pit stop. So a lot of quick cars at the front, and a lot of drivers wanting to get on with the program. And again, just the excitement coming to the end when the Panos had a very comfortable lead, and see that lead just evaporate as if it was a vapor. Maybe that's what was in the fuel tank, just vapor, not fuel.
So one or two of those cars that had problems yesterday, all good to go today, which is good to see. Teams having had a busy night. Although, as I say, one that we have lost is the Flying Lizards Porsche, which is a real shame, because Mike Jordan went so well in that car yesterday. But according to Mike, the car has a bit of an engine oil leak that it's too risky to run, and the thought of retiring down the pit lane trailing smoke doesn't really fill him with optimism. So quite sensibly, he's going to park it. He had a good run in that car with San Andrew yesterday, and Mike can go back to looking after the customers. Yes,
also they did have a kiss with the concrete wall on the way out of La Source. Mike Jordan got squeezed coming down, I think it was by the BMW, in fact, and consequently that may have been a contribution.
Lights go green, so blast off for 40 minutes as the cars go towards La Source, and it is Olivier Gallant then in the lead in the Panos as they turn their way through the hairpin, and headlights ablaze, looking absolutely like a snapshot in time coming out of La Source. The cars in period colour schemes, and it is going to be Panos from Maserati from Chevrolet as they make the climb now up through Raidillon.
Well, the lead two cars are exactly as they were in the opening lap 24 hours or so ago, but it didn't take Sam Hancock very long to find a way around the Panos, and you can see already catching, using the aerodynamic drag or benefits up the hill up into Les Combes, and he's not quite far enough up to make a move down the inside wisely. Pulls back and lets the Panos get into the Lamborghini and the Maserati side by side. And
yeah, that was Nico Verdonk going through. Yesterday we had Peter Cox with one of the Lamborghinis that had a problem late race and has been withdrawn today. It's a real shame,
yes.
But you know, the demands of running these cars. You want to. Oh, and the Panos has got problems now as well at Bruxelles. That's run wide, possibly understeer, but whether it's something more fundamental, we'll wait and see.
I think it might be a puncture,
possibly,
because the way the front was just washing out, he had no real control. He couldn't keep the car. Oh, so there it is. So there is the Panos limping its way back, and that's very sad. Only getting basically a third of the way around the racetrack, but it doesn't look to be a puncture. So whatever it is very strange, because he certainly overran the middle of Bruxelles, and there's no sign of the left front being deflated.
I just wonder whether it was ever so slightly crab-like, but I think it's okay. So, Sam Hancock leads, Andrew Jordan leads Adrian Wilmot. Then the three British drivers up front, Maserati, Chevrolet. The Corvettes of differing rule sets. One very much a GT3 early Corvette, the other from the Le Mans GT2 regulations. There it goes through. Adrian Wilmot won yesterday's race. The Corvettes, of course, make a fantastic noise. And they're in fourth place. You've got the Stefan Reutmeier Porsche. He in turn has got Nico Verdonk behind him, alongside him, and Verdonk gets squeezed a little bit. He's been out in action today already in the GT4 race. Then behind the cars here, you've got the red Ferrari, Jonathan Mitchell at the wheel.
So the Lamborghini trying to find a way past, but Porsche's got that slight advantage, straight line speed up into the chicane. But whether the Lamborghini can make it work around the rest of the racetrack, we will have to wait and see.
Big slide there from number 22, Sebastian Glazer, having just won the touring car race in a BMW 3-litre CSL, now in his 911 GT2 Porsche. To the inside line there goes Nico Verdonk. Stefan Reutmeier gives him racing room, lets him go. Place changes then as they come down the hill. So Nico Verdonk sets off in pursuit now of the leaders. And there, Adrian Wilmot inching up onto the back of Andrew Jordan. In fact, with all the grunt he's got, he's going to go by.
And he's got a problem, Andrew Jordan. He pulled over to the right. Whether that was a deliberate move, certainly gave all the room he needed to Wilmot Corvette. And I thought, in fact, Andrew Jordan had suddenly got a problem, but maybe he just decided he'd rather follow than be pursued.
I think he just realised Adrian Wilmot was quicker and there was no point getting in the way, so he gets out of the way and then he can sit on the tail, and where the GT3 Corvette might be stronger is through the corners, but where the Le Mans car of Wilmot will be quicker and stronger is in that straight line. You can see now that, again, it stretches its legs and the gap just starts to widen a little bit as they come down the hill. So there is the Callaway Corvette out of Pouhon, and the run with Sam Hancock well clear in the lead of the race. Now, Alexander Rittweger didn't get much time in that car yesterday. Let's see what he can do today, however, as they swing their way out of the piff-paff here.
No, the Vitafoam Maserati, all of a sudden it didn't finish the race. It was a DFN. We never fully found out what the problem was, but looks like whatever it was is rectified, and Sam Hancock literally just powering away from the rest of the field.
So there, Richard Mines with the Vita 4-1 BMW Z4, which takes you back to 2012 when Michael Bartel's team ran those cars, not only in the, as it then was called, Blancpain Endurance Series, but also in the City Challenge event in Baku. Had a team of, what, 3 of them for that event, Jacques Villeneuve being one of the drivers. And ahead of the Richard Mines BMW is another of the Lamborghinis. You've got the FIA GT1 World Championship Murcielagos, but you've also got the Jack Tetley, Nick Maton Gallardo GT3, which is there behind Philippe Collinson's car. And the other yellow Corvette, just quickly, John Emberson showing with Nigel Greensill there.
And the Tetley trying to find a way past the Ferrari directly ahead, and it's all getting a little bit tight. Coming up into the chicane, the Lamborghini goes up the inside of the Ferrari into the chicane, and the outcome, well, the Ferrari comes out just ahead, so good driving by both drivers to avoid contact. The BMW gets slightly run wide on the exit of the chicane. That'll lose it at least one position.
In the background as well, on the far side of the road from Richard Mines BMW, is Nick Padmore, starting today in Jean-Louis Rion's 996. Many of these drivers have just done the touring car race, so Nick Padmore having to leap from a BMW 635 into a Porsche, car that was 15th overall at Le Mans, number 76, the IMSA car when you see it.
So Lambo has got through. Tetley has made the overtake, must have been up in the entry into or exit off La Source. So that was something was predictable, and it's come to true. And you can see virtually by the meter beginning to stretch the advantage ahead of the Ferrari.
Battle on in the background, the Ford GT of number 40, Philippe Scamama, trying to fend off the Aston Martin, number 212, there it is, the car that's being started by Patrice Garouste, the 2007 DBR S9, there it is. Richard Mines sitting on his tail, and then Nick Padmore closing up in the Porsche. Big dive by Pierre Arret up the inside of John Emberson. That's the sister car to Adrian Wilmot's Corvette, the two team cars of that era.
So the Ford GT dives to the inside, and Corvette had to turn away suddenly in the last second, saw it coming, but that's given the BMW the opportunity to again use the compromise that arose during that overtake, and also the Aston Martin gets through likewise. So in the space of 2 corners, the Corvette has dropped back. Yes, 2 more places.
So there you've got the cars coming towards us now with John Emberson in number 63 Chevrolet, hustling on, fending off Nick Padmore, but I'm not sure from how much longer, really, looking at this, because we know that Nick Padmore is very, very quick, and he wants to give Jean-Louis Rion the best chance. Big flash of the lights from Nick, BRDC member, for his great successes in historic racing. And that, I'm afraid, is the sorry sight of the Paynos. It's quite interesting to see what there is and how where the engine is in relation to the driver, but we'd rather have it on track.
Yeah, I suspect that may be transmission. They've got the rear of the car off, so they're looking around, I imagine, whether it's gear selection issues or whichever. But it happened more or less, you know, on the opening lap and without any warning. We saw the car run deep and wide into Bruxelles. And all intents and purposes, it looked like a tire had gone down, but clearly it wasn't. It may have been a gearbox full of neutrals, so he would have no real control over the car at a point when he needs to be able to use the throttle. So Porsche drags Corvette up the long pit straight up into La Source.
And a big effort there, John Emberson trying to fend off Nick Padmore for 20th place, but Nick Padmore round the outside and goes through. So the IMSA Matmut Performance Porsche goes by, and a cheery wave for Nick Padmore to say thank you for giving me racing room.
So that is a 996 GT3 RSR from 2005. There's a little battle going on with the Audi and the Porsche. So straight line performance, maybe the Porsche's got the advantage being turboed, but the V10 Audi motor we know is a real horse of an engine. That's the engine that's given Audi over the last number of years such enormous success, including winning here, of course, in the 24 hours.
So there you've got Stefan Reutmeyer's Porsche, and behind Vasily Vladikin in the Audi that runs in WRT colours. It was a Rosberg team car, then a Nova driver car, then Tocqueville Motorsports had it for Phil Hansen, but it's been bought by Johnny Westbrook. It's driven by the Cypriot licensed drivers Vasily Vladikin and Andrei Solokovtsev, and runs in those colours. Vincent Voss at WRT gave permission. It was Johnny's favourite livery for an Audi R8, so rather than go for the original colour scheme, he decided to go for something a little bit different, and that leopard livery I think works really well on that car. If you look very closely, you'll find Johnny's daughters' names, Amelie and Peggy, represented on that. Watching, I think, at home, watching the family car come up to have a go at Stefan Reutmeyer's Porsche. The Audi is the younger of the two, and Vasily Vladikin is a rapid driver, and he's just proved that by going around the outside and making the corner. Good pass.
Yeah, that was well judged, because it was just a little hiccup as he came through the exit, but he was able to use the line on the left-hand side to brake that little bit later. The Porsche had to be on the anchors fractionally sooner, so that was a well-executed overtake. And where is Sam Hancock? Sam Hancock's vanished. He's 14, almost 15 seconds ahead of Adrian Wilmot in second place. So Sam Hancock is in a different race to everybody else here this afternoon.
Is indeed, isn't he? As the cars then power their way uphill once more. Vasily Vladikin getting away a little bit now in the Audi, with the Stefan Reutmeyer, Michael Ferveny Porsche behind, and then Jonathan Mitchell next in the queue.
You've got the power, the speed the Porsche's got. Up the Camel straight, almost gets itself on level coming into the top of the circuit. Les Combes, so the entry to the right, then the flick back to the left, then the exit to the right, easy to run. No, there we are, Sam Hancock. Suddenly our race leader back on camera. And he's already down at the almost lowest point in the circuit, coming through Fagnes, then the short run down to Campus. And when you exit Campus, that is the lowest part of the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. And just having a really lovely, gentle Saturday afternoon drive, all on his own.
So there through goes Adrian Wilmot. He's the man in second place, but Sam Hancock doing the fastest lap of the race last time around, so hanging on to position. Andrew Jordan is still third, Nico Verdonk fourth, Vasily Vladikin fifth, then in sixth place, Michael Ferveny, In turn, Jonathan Mitchell 7th. Evgeny Kirev going better today, 8th. Gregory Drio's Bentley going better today, 9th. And then it is Josh Kruger in 10th place in the Viper. Jordan, though, being caught now by Nico Verdonk.
Yes, and I suspect that Verdonk has got a big momentum building up in the Lamborghini. The Corvette is no slouch in a straight line, but I think in overall lap times the Lamborghini will clearly show it is quicker, and it'll be not a matter of if but when. We see Verdonk climb up into 3rd position, and Andrew Jordan accepting that really nothing much had got to do. There's the Lambo going to try and slide down the outside under braking. Andrew Jordan still got a nose ahead, and he's too wily a racer to make it easy, but now the Verdonk tries to go the wrong way, and again just racecraft from Andrew Jordan, just runs the Corvette enough to have to make Verdonk lift the throttle, goes one side back to the other side, and yeah, that's experience and good racecraft.
And of course, we're looking at cars of different rule sets. GT3 plays GT1, so the Corvette, in theory, should be the slower of the two. Nico Verdonk howling along with the Lamborghini, that car from the FIA GT1 World Championship, the Murcielago. Heads up now into Les Combes, but Andrew Jordan pressing on. It's a shame we never saw Andrew really come into GT racing. I seem to recall he had a one-off at Alton Park in a British GT Ginetta, but it would have been really good to see, after his touring car career, Andrew come into GT racing, because he would have been very, very good in that, I reckon.
Do you not feel that maybe the reason he didn't is because driving for an independent team, you're not your own boss, whereas if you run your own team, you are your own boss?
Maybe.
And maybe one of those things, he's just happiest running within the family business.
I think people also get a bit typecast. People these days think touring car drivers don't necessarily translate to longer races, but they can do. We've seen, for example, Gordon Shedden go very well in GT Ferraris, dovetailing some outings with touring car activity. And there, Adrian Wilmot, who, if you go back to the 1980s, was in the Dunlop Autosport Star of Tomorrow Formula Ford intake 1 year, and had a spell in Formula Ford, had many, many years away to go off and build up businesses, and then came back, raced for a bit in Formula Palmer Audi. We've lost the GT Ford in the hands there of Philippe Scamama at Les Combes, but he's got going again. Yeah,
he overran the corner and had to find a suitable gear to get the car rolling, but I'm really curious to see with Verdonk. He's only a quarter of a second behind Andrew Jordan, and
yeah, Andrew Jordan, I think, is, what, 3rd, Verdonk 4th. It's only 0.2 of a second. And we've had another drama. This is the replay, I think, of what happened to Philippe Scamama, because Pierre Eret's white Ferrari made the move, and ouch.
Yes, I mean, you've got drivers of different categories and different grades, and just set himself off to turn into the corner, and the Ferrari was not, I don't know if it was fully alongside or not, but you know, it's the sort of contact you would expect with such a different level of driving skill and ability.
But the good news is Scamama gets back on track, carries on in the race, therefore. Evgeny Kirev here looking the racing box Maserati on the back of Jonathan Mitchell's very anonymous Ferrari, coming up towards the timing line. Goes by.
Well, the Maserati ought to be able to handle the Ferrari directly ahead, because it should have a lot more horsepower. It may be slightly older in terms of its history, but nonetheless it's a pretty quick car. And the sister car in the hands of Sam Hancock is leading comfortably now by 21.2 seconds. So I think Sam Hancock's taking about 2 and a bit seconds per lap out of Adrian Wilmot and those following behind.
So we've got the cars currently on lap 7, and the race lead is 21 seconds. The pit window is open, so of course those that don't have a co-driver still have to make a pit stop. You don't need a second driver, it's entirely up to you, but the regulations allow for it. Through goes Vasily Vladikin, through goes Mikhail Furveny. And there, Gregory Drio in the Bentley, going much, much better today. That car is the one that really makes me worried in terms of age, because to see that, we talked about it making its race debut, and 10 years on, we're talking about it in a, in quotes, historic race. It shows you how fast time moves on, really.
Well, I think if you put it in the context of the brand, I mean, Bentley have been around since the 20s, winning 24-hour races, so, I mean, just a little bit of latitude and allowed to run. I don't suppose there's no balance of performance in this, is there?
I think that's just down to the driver, yes. Good battle, though, here, look, because Mikhail Furveny has got Jonathan Mitchell's Ferrari not just behind, but now alongside and past, in fact. So Jonathan Mitchell, who went nicely yesterday, got himself, in the end, up into 4th place, is edging his way forward. But it does look incredibly anonymous, doesn't it, that Ferrari, the 458. But it's well driven by Jonathan Mitchell.
Yeah, I mean, there was a supercar in period, the 458. Again, though, that Howling naturally aspirated motor before they went to the 488, which became the twin turbo, and which is fundamentally what Ferrari have been doing ever since. The 296, the current Ferrari GT3 car, of course, is a V6 twin turbo. So the V8 that was in the 488 is no longer, I think it might be a production engine in other ranges within the Ferrari lineup, but certainly the 296 is the most current and very, very, I mean, fantastic motor, that 296 V6 twin turbo.
For the pit lane goes Evgeny Kirev. He has raced, he has rallied. The very successful businessman, turning his attention to one of the great GT cars of its era. In that pseudo Gulf colours of the orange and powder blue, Michael Ferveny comes out of La Source, being urged on by the fans. Down the pit lane goes the Perfect Circle Porsche that was in the Kyle Army 9 Hours back in 2019, and a spin there. That's Jack Tetley, isn't it, who has rotated?
Yes. He's trying to get it, whether he's had a stall or whether he was just looking to find the gears, and gets it rolling, and that'll be a disappointment because he was having a nice little run. So he's now got the BMW back on the rear wing where it overtook the BMW some laps ago.
So Jack Tetley, who has done an awful lot of his previous racing at Goodwood. His father, David Tetley, was a national racer in Thunder Saloons, for example, Ford Caprice, and then the Stars and Stripes ex-Nick Oatway Opel Manta in Thunder Saloon racing. There into the pit lane has come Nico Verdonk then.
Yep. Further down the field, we've got a race amongst two of Britain's most prominent Porsche dealers, not new car dealers, but pre-owned, let's call them pre-owned Porsche. And Mark Sumpner is ahead of Lee Maxted Page, less than half a second. So those two are having a lovely afternoon here at Spa.
That's a car that retired yesterday, but he's getting better today, serving its mandatory stop. Olivier Piquet taking on water. And again, that's one of the earlier BPR into FIA GT era Porsches from 1999, the 911 GT2 Evo. That's a much more standard version there, you can see, in the hands of Enrique Gempel. And that's Mark Sumpter with the very distinctive FAT, the colour scheme that's adorned many a Porsche over the years. Still does, of course, with the 963 even to this day.
Yeah, I think Lee Maxted Page may well have made a pit stop because he was within half a second of Mark Sumpner, but that is not the case right now.
Yeah, Mark Sumpter's car, as you see the leader come into the pit lane, the ex-Jean-Pierre Jarier, Eric Comas, Jesus Pereira 911 GT2 from the early incarnation of GT racing. So the leader is in. Sam Hancock will give way to Alexander Rittweger, and he will give him about half the race, 20 minutes. So the Maserati that's still being run by the Vitaphone racing team, many of the people operating the car you would have seen 20 years ago running them in period. Into the pit box he swings ahead of the Alexander Linau, now Stefan Jocher. Aston Martin there, the green and yellow ex-Darrell Young car in the Macau colours in the background.
Michael Bartels didn't rock up by any chance, did he, to just watch his old Maserati car, team cars?
I didn't see him, but I would be surprised if he weren't here. I would be surprised if he weren't here as a winner of the event as well.
He's always a very omnipresent figure in period.
Yeah. And Michael Bartels won the 24 Hours of Spa for Maserati. He won the FIA GT and FIA GT1 World Championships in the Maserati MC12. The gap for second and third is coming down. Sorry, now the lead because of Hancock pitting. So Adrian Wilmot versus Andrew Jordan. As you can see to the eye, it's that little bit less, 0.7 of a second at the start of the lap. But in a sense, it matters not because Adrian Wilmot's car will go at that pace all day. It will be a change of driver and a change of pace when Andrew Jordan gives way to the owner, to Matt Home.
So getting a driver in and having the seat belts reattached and what other adornments are within the cockpit, there may be a radio connection, and it's quite difficult as a driver to get the seat belts all connected, 6-point seat belts, and then getting the shoulder straps tightened down, especially if you're wearing a hands device, which gives you less movement in the cockpit.
I was about to say, is that not Michael Bartels with a beard? I think it is, isn't it? By the side of the car.
We'll soon see when he stands up.
Yeah, it does look like Michael. He didn't used to be a bearded Bartels, but I think he might be now. So giving advice to Alexander Rittweger. The Corvettes are going to come in together. They're both run by the Jordan Racing team, so they might as well come in at the same time. But Adrian Wilmot, the race winner yesterday, will stay behind the wheel of his car and rejoin. There, the drivers that raced it in the 24 hours. Miguel Ramos, Sandy Negrão, Stefan
I've got a
Lemery.
problem here with getting the seatbelts connected. There's something not right, and finally the door is shut, and that is Michael Bartels, yes. Or Bartels, is it Bartels or Bartels?
Bartels.
Bartels.
Yeah. Definitely not Bartels, as people used to call him. John Emberson gives way, or will do, to Nigel Greensall there in his distinctive blue crash helmet. Nigel, who notched up 100 different races last year. Not wins, but 100 different races he took part in, and a bit of rallying as well. If there's a day off or a day in the calendar and a car, you put Nigel near it, he'll race it. So John Emberson gives way. They're going through, back on track is number 2 Maserati. With respect to Alexander Rickwege, it will go at a different pace now, but it's not going to be slow.
So we're going to need a few laps just to get this all recalibrated. You know, the pit stops are obviously much slower. There's no pressure on the teams, and they've got a delta time which they cannot exceed or sort of improve upon. Checking the rear tire pressures. The tire pressures are sensitive to a racing car. Basically, the tire pressure is dictated by the tire temperature, and as the tire temperature goes up, the pressure goes up, and that can, and sometimes, particularly in the rear of a car, lead to a certain amount of crowning on the top of the tire, which then makes the back end, for example, a little bit more difficult to control. So Jonathan Mitchell is in. There's something about the nose of that Ferrari looks different to the regular 458, but can't quite work out what it is.
So Jonathan Mitchell just has to sit there for the moment and wait for that clock to tick on down.
I know what it is. It's got the additional headlights in the nose. So that car must have been more just for sprint races or 6-hour races. That must have been a car that would have raced in endurance 24-hour races, for example, to give the additional illumination. When you get on, certainly at Spa, it gets really dark at night. So I think the 64 rumbles up. And there is the Maserati. So the Corvette, I think, is going to take the lead of this race, because there is the Maserati. Hasn't yet completed its outlap with change of driver, and there is the Corvette back out on track. So that, to me, is a very comfortable lead indeed for the Corvette 64.
It is indeed, and Adrian Wilmot, we know, is a very, very rapid driver indeed. There is Matt Home ready to go in the GT3 Corvette. And we've got the problem for the Bentley. Gregory Drio's classic modern racing run Continental, which was one of the ex-Works cars. You can see from the 7 on the front of it, that's slowly making its way back to the pit lane, but it might actually be picking up pace, having had a drama at Les Combes. Let's see.
Oh, he ran wide, that's why.
Yeah. Oh, wow, toboggan through the gravel.
But he had enough momentum to keep the car rolling through it, but I suspect there's a fair amount of gravel has been trapped under the bottom of the car.
So this is potentially a lead change coming up. Alexander Rickwege on the attack. Now, is that the John Emberson or is that the Adrian Wilmot Corvette that he's wriggled away past? It is Adrian Wilmot, so that puts Alexander Rickwege back up into the lead of the race, or that car back up into the lead of the race in the Maserati MT12, and a big lose coming out of Les Combes.
Yeah, that was just suddenly the back end got away, and it happened really quickly. It's not Sam Hancock behind the wheel, it's Rickwege. So that was... And will that see this race get? Certainly be a yellow up at the top of Les Combes. They may have to retrieve the car. The engine has been stalled.
We've had a few cars in gravel and be able to drive out today, so we'll see what Rickwege can do. Here he is, gets the lead.
Yeah, I just wondered, did he catch something on the outside of the corner? No, it doesn't. I think he just made an error.
Just a bit too much speed carried in. He was okay at that point, and then here, accelerates. That's where he got it wrong. He rode the curb, and that unsettled the car. Around it goes, so Alexander Rickwege into the gravel in that car that was second in the 24 Hours of Spa in 2008. So it's got a proper Spa heritage, and it puts Adrian Wilmot back into the lead.
Yes, and that's going to be a pretty comfortable lead, I suspect. And the car is beached.
Yeah.
And doesn't look like it's going in. Again, look at you can see how much gravel there is on the exit of Les Combes.
Poor old Sam Hancock. Yesterday he gave it his all. He's done it again today, but luck not on his side. And Rit Vega getting out of the car.
Yeah. But we'll all read about it when Sam writes his story, and we'll hear about his exploits behind the wheel, and no doubt his disappointment at seeing the car that he drove into a 22 or so second advantage over the rest of the field now all done and dusted.
Full course yellow. Alexander Rit Vega has not had many laps for his money this weekend, has he? In the races, at least. Real shame. Right, so that's going to need retrieving. Full course yellow called. And the field, in the meantime, comes over the line. That is the race leader, or will be the race leader, Adrian Wilmot. Now, where was Nico Verdonk's car in relation to all of this? Because I think Verdonk is actually ahead, isn't he, after the pit stop? Let's look at the road. Yes, there is the Lamborghini in the hands of Nico Verdonk. So Verdonk leads, and second is Adrian Wilmot, and the timing screen reckons that they are both, in fact, behind the number 86 Viper, which Josh Krieger has given way to Matthijs Bakker.
Not really seen much of the Viper so far this afternoon, so there we can see the field running at an 80km/h pace, and then on the left, as they go through the kink onto the Camel Straight, there's a big bright yellow warning light, so drivers are well and truly prepared, and they will have information, hopefully, the more modern of these cars on their onboard screens.
So there is the Maserati being retrieved, but a great shame that that should fall off the road like that, because as we were discussing yesterday, it is one of the great GT/GT1 cars.
I was surprised just at the speed that it, once it lost adhesion at the rear, there was no redemption whatsoever.
No.
And just the momentum, the pendulum effect, if you want to call it that. Now, is he trying to, are they putting him back into the car?
I think they need him to steer it, don't they? They need him to steer, and possibly, having dragged it out of the gravel, let him drive back.
Let him drive it back, yes, I would suggest.
So 11 minutes and change on the clock. This is the delicate part of the operation, because they don't want to make any more damage to that car, or any damage at all if it's escaped so far. The danger is, of course, that he drops a lap. We've got Stefan Joche being investigated in number 507, the yellow and green Macau Aston, for overtaking under the full course yellow.
Well, that's a no-no. So the Maserati about to be plucked from the gravel, and hopefully it won't drag further gravel onto the track, and when the Maserati gets back underway, that if there is gravel in that car, he stays off the line. And I favour gravel traps around racetracks because it is a deterrent. Principally about track abuse, track limit abuses. But the downside of it is, if a car gets into a gravel trap, then you need almost every time to go to a full course yellow to get the car retrieved. True. And the consequence is there's a lot of gravel sometimes is deposited onto the track in the process.
Jean-Louis Rion in the number 76 Porsche that he's taken over from Nick Padmore. Jean-Louis Rion is the car's owner. And as we were discussing yesterday, somebody who has a very nice collection of historic racing machinery, from sports cars to touring cars to Formula One cars. Right, so 10 minutes on the clock, and hopefully it won't be too long before we go green once again. There is the gravel trap flying across the road now, scattering it as he goes.
That was my concern. If he stays offline, that's acceptable. Just, you know, there are points in the circuit where you tend to have to cross over the circuit to make sure that when you get to the following corner that you're not on the line for that. So whatever way around it is never great.
And we've lost an Aston Martin as well there. Etienne Garoust's car has also ground to a halt, sadly.
And where is that? That's again coming out of Lake Combe. No, it's down coming into Campos.
Bruxelles, isn't it? Because I think you find where the track sweeper has just come from, that's Lecum in the background.
That could be, yeah.
So, I'm quite sure what's gone on there. The Jack Tetley, Nick Mayton Lamborghini has been given a 1-minute penalty for speeding in the pit lane. That is 86 then. So now Matthijs Bakker, who I think pitted at exactly the right time, that car comes up towards the line. Now, it was shown as being in the lead at its pit stop. Let's just see where it is now as it comes over the line. It is the lead car, 11 laps done, so it's still ahead. It timed that to perfection.
Yeah, we never saw the pit stop, and clearly the team got the Viper in, did the driver change, turned it around and got it right ahead. So we had anticipated the 64 Corvette of Adrian Wilmot would have been the race leader, but that's not the case, and need to get this race back underway. I don't know how much time there is between the Viper and the Corvette in this line of cars under the full course yellow.
Also, we go green. Well, that's partly the answer. The Nico Verdonk Lamborghini has not yet come across the line, so the car's released, and look, some go green or go back to racing speed rather more attentively than others. The Viper accelerated away. Others look further up the road, are not yet at race pace. Right, 38 seconds is there. Matthijs Bakker, the leader, to Nico Verdonk behind him.
Yeah, that's pretty much a comfortable drive to the flag for Bakker, and again the gravel is to the exit of Les Combes.
The perfect circle Porsche, driven in the Kyle Army 9 hours by Andre Bezuidenhout, who's here in a different Porsche. That car this weekend being driven by Paul Phillips. It was an elderly car, in fairness, when it took part in the IGTC race, but it gave the local drivers an opportunity to race in the biggest sports car event that had been there for 2-3 decades. But the car was a bit temperamental, but drew an awful lot of attention in that colour scheme that David Piper used to run in his 917s in that country. Right, so the lead gap, 38.9 seconds, but only 7 minutes on the clock. Tall order this for Nico Verdonk, but that Lamborghini is a very quick car.
Well, miracles do happen. We saw that last night. We saw the Panos had a very comfortable lead 3 laps out, and then an issue arose, and that's where the Corvette was able to climb over and overtake on that final lap. I mean, basically it was in the chicane that all occurred on the. So it's never over. I hate to say it until it is over.
Well, this is Nico Verdonk, and in the first sector he was faster by 21 seconds. So that's most.
What?
That's most of the gap slashed.
21 seconds.
And there's a yellow flag out in sector 3 now, so somebody has had a drama late in the lap. Here comes Nico Verdonk then, the middle sector. And again, part of these are being contorted a little bit because of the full course yellow, but he's taken a couple of seconds out there, so it won't be 21 seconds per sector, but he is getting closer. There's the number 124 Lamborghini, then the right of run in period car. Look who's behind him, Adrian Wilmot right there. So the battle here is for second and third places, even though they're catching the race leader.
So it's going to be interesting up into the chicane. The Aston's far enough ahead not to really come into play. It will do going into La Source. So both drivers just really thinking more about the exit of the chicane and what's going to happen as they get up. So the Aston's pulled over to let these 2 cars go through, and that's good driving, good etiquette, because he's not in this battle, and let these 2 cars battling over second place. And that's what I call good driving.
So coming out of La Source then, downhill goes Nico Verdonk. He stretched that margin a little bit over the Corvette to just about half a second, and the lead gap is now 13.9. So what was it, 38? 13.9 it's come down to. There it is, the lead car with the yellow stripe across the top of the windscreen. Let's start the clock and see where in the background we will get the Lamborghini and the Viper. They've got an awful lot of traffic to go through, even if they are quicker, and that might just save Matthijs Bakker up towards the braking zone for Les Combes. 13.9, 13.3, not enough of a gain.
No, I mean, it's the clock is running down, and the traffic is going to be an issue for these 2 cars to deal with. I mean, if the traffic is kind, then they'll maintain their momentum, but it just depends if they're engaged in their own particular battles and are unaware that these 2 cars are ultimately challenging for a victory. There we see 5 of them.
Absolutely right. So you've got Porsche, Aston, Porsche, Lamborghini as they accelerate down the hill. Distinctive engine notes from the Lamborghini, distinctive engine note from the Corvette. It's a real shame that Panos wasn't able to carry on that Dan's Esperante GT1, because having gone so well yesterday, presumably the problem it had at the end of race 1 was what stopped it again at the end of race 2 and not solved. Meantime, Verdonk bravely through the traffic on the inside there, gets past Paul Phillips. Yes,
the Corvette likewise given room and takes advantage of it, so wants to keep as close to the tail of the Lamborghini, but again, now traffic coming through Campus, and you have to be patient. There's no real fair way to try and get up the inside into Paul Frère-Courbe.
That's the Jack Tetley, Nick Maton, GT3 Lamborghini ahead of the GT1. So the Murcielago rather, through on the inside. Adrian Wilmot follows suit. And they're getting closer, but they're also running out of time as far as getting the lead is concerned.
So the Lamborghini holds the middle of the road and denies Wilmot any chance to go up the inside or down the outside. Again, want to see what this Aston does, whether it is as generous as the yellow car was a previous lap. And I think the Lambo is going to slide down the inside. Whether the Corvette will be able to tag along, yes it does. The Aston stays well to the left and lets these two cars get through.
So downhill comes there Nico Verdonk, Adrian Wilmot behind. Again, as perhaps you would not be surprised to learn, there are different parts of the track where individual cars are stronger out of that battle. So sometimes the gap stretches and in other parts it comes right down. They're being pretty brave up the curb.
Yes.
There's Matthias Backer. Yeah,
Wilmot was getting over the curb on the exit of radio and the car didn't really like that. Was a little bit unstable up for a brief moment. But that illustrates that down the inside. Can he make it work? Can he make it work? Oh, he had to almost run just over the curb, get a wheel onto the gravel to avoid the contact. Wasn't sufficiently far alongside the Lambo to think he could take the corner.
So right now you've got up front the race leading Viper, Matthias Backer at the wheel of it, 11.8 seconds to the good as they drop downhill. More lap race, that marks Sumpter or Olivier Piquet's car. Piquet, I think that is. And here, Richard Mines coming towards us. There you've got the Viper, and that's the leader. Let's see where second and third are. The clock starts, and the clock is going to be revealing at the next sector the gap, but you can see to the eye how much it's come down. So 9.4 at the last timing point. Nico Verdonk is going to get one more lap out of this race, and there, I'm afraid, is another of the Vipers in trouble.
Yeah, had a heart attack.
Yeah,
that's not the lead car.
No, did that. That's the Eric Mestag car that slowed right down. But 9.5, 5 seconds now. Matthias Backer is going to feel the pressure shortly. Verdonk, look, has shaken off Wilmot, and all systems are go.
Yes. So it's going to be a battle between the Lamborghini and the leading Dodge Viper. So again, it'll be traffic management. So there's the Viper just coming out of Blanchimont. There is the Lamborghini. So the gap's probably around about 4 and a bit seconds. And again, it's using the traffic. Will he be assisted? No, he doesn't get in assist. So that's going to cost him time. Going to go the long way around. And he needs to be really careful. Verdonk knows there's enough experience to know when to stick your nose and when not to, but that has worked favorably for the Viper and not for the Lamborghini.
3.7 seconds, 1 lap to go. It's on, isn't it, this for Nico Verdonk? Even though the traffic gets in the way to an extent, he's got the speed.
You can see the Viper just going out of picture. And there is the Lamborghini. So as they came across the line, the gap was 3.7 seconds. And then it is doable, but it'll need assist from the traffic that's being lapped.
Now, just to add to the mix, Nico Verdonk there, chasing, has got a time penalty. He has been given a time penalty of 6 seconds for being too short on the pit stop. So he's not only got to catch and pass, he's got to pull away by 6 seconds. That's going to make life very difficult.
Well, I think if you believe in miracles, it'll happen, but the reality is he's got to catch the Corvette, sorry, catch the Viper. Then got to find a way around it, and then in the last lap pull out a 6+ second advantage. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. Yeah. You could run into problems. The Viper could have a problem, as we saw the panels having yesterday. So it's not over. Absolutely not. But let's see whether, first of all, Verdonk can at least win it on the road. The gap's coming down and down and down. The Viper's stuck in traffic. You know, that's not going to help its case to try and be clear by 6 seconds. Down into Pouron comes Nico Verdonk. So last lap drama. But even in historic racing, if your team releases you too soon, there's a consequence to pay. Look, he's almost with him now, came towards Piff Paff. So Nico Verdonk needs to push and push and push and push. He's on the tail of Matthias Backer with the Viper that wriggles its way now out of the Piff Paff, back on the power, down towards Campus. To the inside line he goes, job done. Verdonk goes through. Backer, in fairness, gave him racing room. Lead change happens, but now he's got to try and pull 6 seconds in 3 corners. Yeah, but Backer probably doesn't know there's been a penalty. No. I give it to the Lamborghini, so he thinks, oh no, I've lost my win. And his heart sinks, and he brings it to the end. Well, I don't think Verdonk's going to be 6 seconds clear, but he's going to have a red-hot go, isn't he? Oh, he will do, undoubtedly. But I think even for Nico Verdonk, it's a task that's probably a step too far.
Here he comes, look to the inside. Yep, he's not going to clear 6 seconds. Can he get past the Ferrari? No, he can't. So turning in ahead of him, Philippe Collinson. And that means they're going to be nose to tail when they get to the checkered flag. Here they come on the road. Nico Verdonk is going to win. Just like in yesterday's race, the lead car leads only at the end of the last lap. But Nico Verdonk ahead of Matthijs Bakker over the timing line. But then we need to worry about the different penalties, and that's going to give us a different look to the classification. Well, I know we've suffered a little bit with gremlins and reliability, but the historic races, whether they've been touring cars or GT, have given us lots to talk about.
Well, it's great to see these cars back in action and being driven hard by some professional drivers, by some genuinely gentleman drivers, and everything in the middle. So I suspect that Verdonk, by the time the timing and scoring works it out, will probably finish third, and it'll be Bakker in the Viper from Wilmot in the Corvette taking the first and second positions.
So there the cars make their way down the pit lane. And Nico Verdonk on the road winner. We'll await for penalties to be applied. The cars being taken to the post-race area, back to the teams. And very shortly that pit lane is going to get busy with preparations for the Crowdstrike 24 Hours of Spa. So the historic teams aren't going to have many minutes to enjoy their moment.
Within 15 minutes, this pit lane's going to be busy with the main event getting underway.
Absolutely so. So there the cars being marshalled into the paddock, where they've had a huge amount of attention. When I was down there yesterday afternoon before the first GT race, you bump into Stefan Rattel, having a look at cars through his company's history, and also Benjamin Franasovici, who is these days the man in charge of not just the Asian Le Mans series, but GT World Challenge Asia, but was the coordinator of the early FIA GT Championship, and Benjamin was down there as well, misty-eyed, looking back over how GT racing has moved on. And you look at the cars in any given year and you think that's state of the art, and then you put them against a car 5 years on and see how things have moved on. It's quite revealing. Well,
I mean, progress in motorsport, whatever level you look at, is just, I mean, it's unbelievable. And GT3, just thinking about certain cars and the way that, for example, the back of a 296 Ferrari, really from behind the rear wheel backwards, that's one piece. And in that bodywork, there's a molded in part of the exhaust system, so that if there's damage at the rear of the car, they just remove that section in its totality. That gives them then access to the back of the car immediately. And then if that's maybe damaged in an incident with the rear wing or whatever, they just take a new one out of the garage, bolt it straight back on, and it's job done. Fantastic.
Now there, Josh Kreuger gets out of the car. So he started and therefore went solo. So apologies to Josh. Matthijs Bakker didn't get a run after all.
I see Christophe Bouchou's name on the side of that car. Christophe Bouchou, one of the great drivers from France in endurance racing.
Adrian Wilmot.
Plenty quick he was.
Yeah, exactly. So there, Adrian Wilmot, second place.
I had a couple of chances at him, but I couldn't make it stick.
And Josh Kreuger, our race winner, should be able to have a word, because Antonio Rankin is down there, and Josh Kreuger can reflect on a race win, having driven it solo.
Josh, that race was chaotic towards the end with all of those penalties, but congratulations.
Thank you. I don't even know what place I ended.
You won.
I won? Yeah. You sure? Oh, they told me that I was second, so...
we think you won.
Okay, that's great. Wow, well, thank you. That's great news. Yeah, it was a hectic race. It was, I think with the penalties that I came up with a lot of competitors who had shorter pit times. So I had to fight a little bit for it, but this car is just great. And such a venue. What more can you want as a motorsports fan?
Yeah, we're still waiting for some confirmation because, like I said, lots of penalties towards the end there. But did it feel as chaotic as it looked?
It was, especially in the end. Lots of speed difference. This car loves to go in a straight line. So I had to fight for it in the corners because I just lost traction, especially in the front. But if it turns out that I'm first, yeah, who can complain?
And how comes you chose to enter as a solo entry without a co-driver?
Yeah, so my father-in-law, he's my co-driver. He had to go back. He had a family weekend, so we chose that each one would do a race. He did great yesterday, going from I think 13.
Oh, the car's running away.
it still wants to go. So he did the race yesterday. He came 6th. He's 65 years old, so you got to give it to him. But as I said, if it turns out to be a win today, then it's double luck.
Oh, well, I'm sure he'll be really happy for you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
So job well done, and now we understand how they divided it up, not just a stint each, but a race each. So thanks to our race winner, Josh Kreuger, from Adrian Wilmot in 2nd place, Nico Verdonk 3rd in the end, ahead of Jonathan Mitchell, and then Marcus van Neuenhausen's Audi, Evgeny Kiriv's Maserati 6th. Andrew Jordan and Matt Holmes 7th, ahead of Sebastian Glazer, then Michael Furvey and Stefan Reutmeier, and 10th to John Emberson and Nigel Greensall. Great shame that we lost 1 or 2 of the charismatic cars, either through incidents or through reliability, but a look down the result shows the drivers we've had, and indeed some of the great drama that we've had over the course of the 2 races. Some very good battles indeed. Pit lane opening very shortly for the cars to be released for our Crowdstrike 24 Hours of Spa. Highlights though of Endurance Racing Legends Race 2. Olivier Gallon in the lead at the first corner, but the Pinot sadly did not last very long at all, because that hit problems around the lap and put Sam Hancock into the lead. Good battle going on between Nico Verdonk and Evgeny Kirev, but it was Verdonk that went through. The Pinots, though, in trouble at Bruxelles. It limped around to the pit lane. So Sam Hancock up front started to build the advantage, breaking clear of the opposition. And as he did so, that put Andrew Jordan in 2nd place. Pierre Eret made a move against Philippe Gamama. Contact between the two turned around the Ford GT, and as a consequence, that car fell down the order. Pit stop window opened, and Nigel Greensall would take over from John Emberson in the Corvette, as we had Nico Verdonk hustling on in number 1 at 24, but he was short on the pit stop, so ultimately copped a penalty. Interrupted by full course yellows, it meant that after the stops, Josh Kreuger was way ahead out on his own, and try as he might, Nico Verdonk hunted him down, but with his penalty, even though Verdonk got the lead on the track, couldn't clear the penalty time. Alexander Rittberger had taken over Sam Hancock, put the car in the gravel. That triggered one of those neutralisations. Josh Kreuger losing track position to Nico Verdonk, won the race, but was somewhat surprised to learn of a victory at the end of our 2nd Endurance Racing Legends event of the weekend. From John Watson and David Addison, it's goodbye.